I am going to be breaking down week 2 here of college football. I started last week, broke down week 1, and it was a pretty good week. I threw out some picks. I went 2-2. One of the losses was a half bet, SMU. First half and full game. So overall, a profitable day. And then we did come out profitable in DraftKings and FanDuel as well. So a pretty good start to week 1. We're looking to continue that momentum here to week 2. How this works, I will break down DraftKings and FanDuel slate. I will also preview all the games. Also give you, if I have any betting advice, or if it's just a game I'm interested in watching, and I want to break that down as well. So without any further ado, let's get started here. The first game I have up is not listed. That's tonight's game. It actually goes in about an hour, so by the time you watch this, unless you're streaming it live, it's probably already happened. But it is UAB versus Miami. I did take the under in this game at 54.5. Might be able to get it at 55. Basically, I don't really trust UAB against Miami's defense. I do kind of like this UAB team. They are 65% against the spread under Bill Clark. Miami's not good as a home favorite. Miami is 0-2 against their last 2 Conference USA opponents as well. Kind of a fun angle on that one. But on offense, Miami, man, nobody knows what to expect. They have Derek King coming in. He could totally change that offense. New offensive coordinator. They're going to run a lot of plays. They're going to play fast. There's a chance that under doesn't hit if they just run too many plays. UAB has a very good defense. Number 20 on D. They only allowed 3.5 yards per carry last year. So I think they'll hold their own. Could be a good game. I'm looking forward to it either way. I want to see how Derek King does there. But yeah, I did take the under just because those are 2 offenses that were terrible last year. And so got to wait to see it before I trust them. All right, as far as the first game on the DraftKings slate, we have Eastern Kentucky versus West Virginia. Eastern Kentucky is terrible. They got absolutely dominated by Marshall, 59-0 last game. I have no interest in them whatsoever. However, on West Virginia's side, a lot of these guys will probably have a pretty good game. Their quarterback, Jarrett, I don't know if his name, Doge. He has a decent price, but he's pretty expensive. He'll probably have a good game. Grant Wells for Marshall had a good game last week against Eastern Kentucky. Letty Brown is really priced too much. He's a running back. Probably has a good game, but West Virginia was dreadful running the ball last year. So yeah, they'll probably get on track here against the FCS squad. Most people expect them to be a little bit better this year, West Virginia. But do you really want to pay all the way up at those prices for Letty Brown? I don't really. Maybe a share or 2 here or there. Their backup running back is interesting, Tony Mathis Jr. He's very cheap. Not on FanDuel, but on DK at 4,400. He's a good punt play. Simply since they might blow them out. It's not open on all books, but it's about a 40-point spread. I like to look at backup running backs in that situation. So Tony Mathis Jr. possibly worth a look. Last week, with Marshall playing, I did take a few shots on their backup running back. I believe his name is Sheldon Evans. And he got a touchdown. He had a decent game, so it paid off against this very same team. It could pay off here. I'm not going crazy on him, though. TJ Simmons, wide receiver, I would look at him. He's, I believe, their second option. I trust him to be their second option. Sam James, I believe, is their number 1 receiver, but he is priced through the roof on both sites. So I don't know if I'm interested in doing that. He could return value, but again, there's some good options, and I don't know if I want to be taking West Virginia at those prices. Alrighty. This game I am really looking forward to. We have Syracuse at North Carolina. This one should be a barn burner. If you're unfamiliar with these plays, get my head out of the way there. If they're in bold, that means they are a very strong play. Consider it a core play, but I don't really use that because I have usually a few more options than would usually be considered core. UNC, man, They're on to something this year. I did write an article for the breakdown. I will share that when I drop this on YouTube. I will share the link to that article. I previewed this game in depth. But UNC, man, a lot of people think they're going to compete for the ACC this year. They're probably the second or third best team. Third, if you ask me. I think Notre Dame probably has them beat, but not by much. They have one of the best offenses in the entire country. It starts with Sam Howell. He is priced pretty high up there. It's going to be difficult to fit these guys in a stack. But you can do it. De'Ami Brown has a decent price, $6,900 on DraftKings. Him and Daz Newsome are both terrific. It's basically a price play for me. It's hard to tell which one's going to go off and when. So they're both worth a look. As far as stacking both with Howell, I don't know if I'd do that. Might do that in one lineup. Howell's not as much of a runner as I would usually like to see at those prices. So, but they will probably blow out Syracuse here. Syracuse has one of the worst defenses in all of college football. They return only 4 starters. They're installing a unique 3-3-5 defense this year. It's a new system. I don't want to play teams with a new system in this crazy offseason. They have a new defensive coordinator, and they were bad defensively last year. So, no thank you. Brutal against the run. Pass D's considered their strength, but they were ranked number 110 last year. They do have some talent back there. But, again, I think UNC is going to score at will here. It's just how they choose to score. Their running backs are worth a look, but these guys split carries, and Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. On DraftKings, Javonte Williams is a little cheaper, so I might go with that option. He's got a little bit more power. Carter's a little bit more of an all-purpose guy. And then on FanDuel, Javonte Williams is also a little cheaper, but Carter has a decent price on FanDuel as well, at only $8,200. So I will have probably some of all these guys UNC, probably my highest-owned team of the slate. As far as Syracuse goes, I will have some ownership. I don't necessarily want to get burned by Syracuse because that happened to me a lot last year where I trusted this offense a little too much. The offense is not bad. They put up 27 points, 49 points, 35 points, and 39 points in their final 4 games last year. They do have a new offensive coordinator, but not much of a change. They have a returning quarterback. They do throw their running back a lot, but I don't have any interest in the running back here because the top 2 guys are not even on the depth chart. I'm not sure what happened to them. Not sure if it's COVID, disciplinary reasons, sitting out. Who knows? So no interest in running backs. However, Taj Harris has a fantastic price point here. I think he's going to have a big year. $5,600 on DK, only $7,400 on FanDuel. He makes for a good cheap stack with Tommy DeVito. You could do a game stack with this entire game. I like that a lot. I don't want to go super crazy on them because, Syracuse, like I said, Syracuse can burn you if they just put up a stinker. Nykeem Johnson might get a lot of targets out of the slot and is priced super cheap. We haven't seen it yet from him, but Syracuse guys out of the slot are always productive, so he's worth a punt play for sure if you need that sort of thing. But there are a lot of good punt plays, so this week. All right. Moving on. Arkansas State versus Kansas State. My head's in the way again. This is a good game. This is another one I previewed in that article that I'll post a link to, but I'm looking forward to this one, man. Arkansas State is a defense that I look to play against. I played against them with Memphis last week, and it was profitable, and I will look to play against them here as well. The Wildcats, Kansas State, there's some stuff coming out here that makes it interesting. So the line is at 10.5. I don't have a play on either side. I would lean towards Arkansas State. Reason being is, give me a second here, that they have some COVID issues this week. Seems like it's probably some of the O-line and some of the wide receiving core is the most news I could find. But like this, they're a hot spot right now. The team's a hot spot. The offensive line in the first place, this is the first time in 31 years that they don't return any starts from the previous season. That's not good. So while I still think they probably can run the ball against Arkansas State, because Arkansas State had the number 117 rush defense last year, 5 yards carries allowed. They allowed 227 on the ground against Memphis last week. They are number 93 in returning defensive production, and they allowed 502 yards total offense against Memphis. So Not super high in Kansas State's offense for the offensive line reasons. They also lose 3 of their top 4 wide receivers. I'm really low on Arkansas State's defense as well. So interesting clash here. K-State's offense can explode. Over 2 games last year against Oklahoma and Kansas, 2 games, they combined as a team to run for 555 yards and 11 scores, all on the ground. Those are in just 2 games. So they can explode. And they're playing a terrible defense here, so I will have ownership. I am interested in Skylar Thompson at 6,800 on DraftKings. That's a great price. I think he's a dual threat. He ran for 11 touchdowns last year. I will have a lot of ownership of him. I could see him running for 2, throwing for 2, something like that. FanDuel is a little bit more expensive, and there are more options on FanDuel. So FanDuel this week has more games on their slate than DraftKings, so you have more options. DraftKings, you have to be a little more picky, and I like Skylar Thompson. Harry Trotter, he could get it done on the ground as well. He is in the depth chart. He's their starting running back. They usually like to divvy up the carries, but Harry Trotter's a starter. Seems like he's going to get the most of the carries, and he probably won't need a ton of carries to do some damage this week against Arkansas State. He's priced at $5,500 on DraftKings, only $7,000 on FanDuel. That's a great price on FanDuel. Even though there are a lot of great options, you should throw him in a lineup or 2. Word about how I play. I don't play crazy. I don't play $200 every week. I'm not setting 150 lineups. I usually set about 10, 15, maybe 20 lineups. I don't go super wild. I don't do this professionally. I've been doing it for the last 2 years and been really researching, and I've been profitable last couple of years. Last year, like I said, I don't have crazy entry fees. I was up about $500 last year because I'm very attuned to college football and I love it. So I got a lot of good info. So if you're curious about how I play and when I mention these lineups, if you're a guy who plays 150 lineups, you can use this info to benefit you. I don't necessarily do that, but I feel like I'm well equipped to offer this advice. So you be the judge. As far as Arkansas State, they are rotating quarterbacks. They have a stinky round game. I'm not looking in that direction. Arkansas, the team they're playing, Kansas State Wildcats, have a pretty good defense, so I'm not going to go crazy. But Arkansas State has one of the best passing offenses in the country, especially at Group of 5. I am a little bit worried they have to step up in competition 2 weeks in a row, playing Memphis, now playing Kansas State. I do think Kansas State probably gets the job done, but Arkansas State keeps this one interesting. I'd be looking at their wide receivers. These guys are both way too low priced. They were low priced last week. I was all over Dahu Green last week. They raised his price, but they didn't raise it enough, especially on FanDuel at $6,400. You have to play that. He's an Oklahoma transfer. He went for 99 yards last week. This guy's a beast. I believe he's 6'5", and Arkansas State really likes to throw the ball. So Dahu Green. Going into the year, everyone's on Jonathan Adams. He's going to be a top 10 guy. I kind of bought the hype, but I was a little wary because everyone just assumes Jonathan Adams is the next up, number one go-to guy. Omar Bayless went for 1,600 yards last year. Now it's Jonathan Adams. It's not necessarily the kind of guy Jonathan Adams is. Dahu Green's much more comparable in his role in the offense to what Omar Bayless did. Not saying he's going to be Omar Bayless, but he is more of a guy who would fill that role than Jonathan Adams. So I warned about that before the year. Bought into it in week 1 and it paid off. I'll have some of it in week 2, but Kansas State, I think, is going to control the ball. Like I said, Arkansas State's run D is so bad that I see Kansas State controlling the clock. So I don't really see Arkansas State going crazy, but I will think they'll keep it close, and those guys could return value. I forgot I was supposed to be given predictions on the score. This one, I'd predict it somewhere around 34-27 K-State. However, I think it could be a little more low scoring if Kansas State just controls the clock. They're not really a team to go crazy, not really a team to run up the score if they do not have to. As far as the UNC, Syracuse, forgot to give a score on that one. I see it somewhere around 45-24 UNC. All right, this is my game of the week. I love this game. Louisiana versus Iowa State. I'm extremely high on Louisiana. This is a team I had circled to back pretty much every single week. They're catching 11.5 points here as the dog against Iowa State, and they didn't lose a single game by over 10 points last year. They did lose to Mississippi State, a Power 5 team, by exactly 10 points, 38-28. So they got close. But this is a fantastic team, one of the best group of 5 teams there is out there. This is the other one I have in my article, the third game I have in my article. They had a record-breaking offense last year. I love this team. They had 37.9 points per game last year and 494 yards of total offense. They are a rushing machine. Number 10 total offense, number 6 rushing offense in the entire country. They're very physical. They have 2 NFL running backs in Trey Ragas and Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell got more carries last year as the year went on. I trust him more. He has a good price point here, $5,900, $7,900. That's a decent price point, but I don't really think they're going to be going crazy. So I wouldn't play him that much, but he'll be in some of my lineups. Ragas has a really cheap price on FanDuel, $6,500. I might play him there, but probably not on DraftKings. In case you can't tell, I'm leaning towards Louisiana in this one. I'm picking them to pull off the upset, and if not, I'll get them to go close. I'll go 31-10, Louisiana. That's what I wrote in the article. I think it might be a little more low scoring than that. Iowa State they had a decent defense, number 45 rush D, number 72 pass D, and they do return 9 of 11 starters. So there's a chance it's a little more low scoring than that. On offense, for Iowa State, Breece Hall is a guy I'm looking at. Very talented running back. Their running game took off once he was back there. He is extremely talented, one of the most talented running backs in college football, in my opinion. He's a very fun one to watch. Another reason to watch this game, you have these 3 running backs out there. Just insane. But overall in the year, they didn't get great line play. They didn't have a great running game. They were number 102 in the country. So, well, I do think it's set up for Breece Hall to have a good game because that's Louisiana's weakness. They were number 82 in defending the run last year, 4.5 yards per pop. That's not going to cut it versus Breece Hall. I think he probably breaks a decent run or 2. I think he'll have a good game. FanDuel, there's more options. I won't have a ton of him, but DraftKings is definitely one of my favorite running backs. As far as the wide receivers, it's really hard to figure out here, man. Really hard to figure out. Tariq Milton, Sean Shaw. They also have, I believe his name is Xavier Hutchinson coming in. It's just hard to know. I'm not going to play their wide receivers because I don't know who's going to go off. I just don't. They spread the ball around a lot. However, I will have Charlie Kohler, their tight end, in a lot of my lineups. 4,500 on DraftKings is insane. I don't want to go 100% owned on him because if he doesn't catch a touchdown, he probably doesn't have a fantastic game. He's a tight end, but they're throwing the ball a lot. I trust him more than any of their other wide receiver targets. Tariq Milton is a pretty good threat, but he only had 3 touchdowns last year. I'm not sure he's really a go-to guy. I think Sean Shaw or Xavier Hutchinson will eventually emerge. My money would be on Sean Shaw, I guess. He's a big target. I like what the beat writers had to say, but I don't know if I can bank on it. But I'll go Charlie Kohler because he's their best returning pass catcher. As far as the pass catchers for Louisiana, I just set a few lineups. I didn't really have any of them, but their prices are so cheap on DraftKings, so cheap on FanDuel. I had to throw them out. That's the one thing worrying me about Louisiana not pulling off the upset in this one is that they did have some injuries to their top 2, I believe it was their top 2 wide receivers before the season started, and that's probably why these guys are priced so cheap, but they're going to look to keep it on the ground as much as possible, even though they do have a good quarterback. Levi Lewis, I don't really see the passing game going crazy, but those are some decent punt options. Fleming is a super talented freshman, but who knows how many targets this freshman wide receiver is going to get in this big game, but he's really, really talented, especially to be playing at a Sun Belt school. So if you want to get a little crazy, Fleming's worth a look. As far as more reasons why I'm on Louisiana, they're 18-10 against the spread under Napier, their coach, Billy Napier. I am a believer. I am all in. I like what I am hearing from him. I like everything about the squad. Their defense was one of the most improved defenses in all of the country last year. They went something like 34 points per game allowed in 2018 to 19 in 2019. So I'm back in that squad. I played them plus 11. Plus 11.5. All right, next game, we have Army, the week 1 standout, I guess, except for BYU. Dominated Middle Tennessee. I was on Army -3 last week. It felt very good. And now they are playing Louisiana-Monroe. a team who I am looking to fade this year, Louisiana-Monroe. Let's talk about their offense. Number 128 in the country on returning offensive production. Not good, folks. They had a top 20 offense last year, but they lose their quarterback. Caleb Evans was huge for that program. It was their top wide receiver, and they lose 4 starting offensive linemen. I don't think it's going to be pretty for Louisiana-Monroe this year. They're having budget concerns. They're in a state of flux right now, to be honest with you. As far as on the defensive side of the ball for Louisiana-Monroe, their defensive coordinator just up and quit, retired about 2 weeks ago, right before the season started. And they had the number 128 rush defense last year. That's one of the worst in all of college football. And they're playing Army, who all they do is run. They were number 3 in rush O last year. They just ran all over Middle Tennessee State. I'm all over Army. As far as DraftKings plays, I wouldn't really play that much of either side. Seems McCoy, I think I could see him getting a few touchdowns. He had 3 last week, but he's a fullback. It's a bit of a strange play. If you think they run up the clock on Louisiana-Monroe, which I think they have a shot of doing, he's worth a look. The only other guy I'd play is their quarterback. He's way too expensive on DraftKings, though, Anderson. And FanDuel, I just set a few lineups, and I didn't have room for him either. They spread the ball too much. It's difficult to know what exactly is going to happen, but they're worth a look. As far as Louisiana-Monroe, I probably won't have much ownership, but they have some decent options. Josh Johnson's one of the better running backs in college football, and they're just going to feed him. I think they're better options. I don't think I'll have very much ownership. Peterson, one of the best tight ends in college football. He'll probably get a lot of looks. And this guy, Hodo, is way too cheap on DraftKings, so maybe he returns value as a punt play. But other than that, the line got steamed like crazy. I'm not sure if I'm going to play Army. Probably not a great idea to play on minus 20.5. It was steamed up like 7 points, but I might play him anyway just because I like Army this year, and I hate Louisiana-Monroe this year, and I've seen Army already destroy a team that wasn't ready. And I saw Louisiana-Monroe was like shutting down practices on and off, not really tackling all that much, and we saw what happens to teams that didn't really take tackling seriously in practice to Navy last week. So tough one to call, but I think the over might be worth a look, although I don't really know if I trust Louisiana-Monroe to score at all. So I think the over is somewhere around 54.5. That would be worth a look. I'm going to take Army 38-14, I believe. And yeah. All right, next. Duke versus Notre Dame, ACC action. I'll try not to be a homer on this one. I'm a Notre Dame fan. But I don't know, man. They played last year. Notre Dame won 38-7. I think Notre Dame was better last year than they will be this year. I think Duke has a chance to be better this year, but who knows? They're a difficult team to read. Last year, Irish were 9-4 against the spread. They were 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games. But I think they'll get off to a slightly slow start in this one. I do think Kelly's a fantastic coach, so I don't necessarily want to say they're going to come out flat, but I have some concerns. And Cutcliffe is a good bet-on coach, especially when he's catching this many points. So if anything, I'd have to take Duke with the points. As far as the total, I did take under 54.5. My reasoning for that is Duke actually has a pretty solid defense, good pass rush. Notre Dame has a good O-line, though. Duke has a pretty good secondary, and they do like to play at a slow pace. I could see them slowing it down. They had the number 24 pass defense last year, only allowed 52.4 completion percentage against. Solid defense. Whereas I do have some concerns with the Irish on offense. Tommy Rees, their offense looked great against Iowa State in the bowl game. I believe that was his first game calling plays, and now he's the new play caller here, new offensive coordinator. But again, still a new offensive coordinator. They do have Ian Book, great quarterback. He's priced out beyond all help, so I probably won't have much ownership. They're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. They lost pretty much all their receivers. And I don't like to see that with college football. Anytime a team loses a lot of receiving production, that's usually correlated with their play on the field. So I don't like to see that. And then Kevin Austin was supposed to be a guy to come in and take over the number 1 receiver role, and now he's out with an injury, out for the year. So I don't know. Yeah, running back, it looks like they have two freshmen. They'll probably split reps at running back. Kyron Williams, at first I thought I was going to have a lot of ownership, but his price isn't fantastic, and I think he's going to be splitting reps. So he is a good back, though. I think he is their best back. I think he'll end up their feature back this year, but not sure week 1. Jafar Armstrong, a lot of people thought he was going to be the starter, and then I guess he had a terrible camp. The coaches, he's always in the doghouse. He's more of he's split time between receiver and running back, so it's difficult to tell with him. But he's priced really cheap. They've already said they're going to split carries, and Jafar Armstrong has the most experience of anyone in the backfield. And if he's not in the backfield, they need help out wide receiver as well, as I just outlined. So I think his price point is way too cheap, but it is risky because he's not starting, and the coaches appear to kind of have him in the doghouse. So, but yeah, of course he could get a touchdown in this one. Of course he could get a few catches and return value. 3,800 in DraftKings, not the worst punt play in the world. Their other punt play I really love on DraftKings, a little more expensive than FanDuel, is Braden Lindsey. This guy's like an Anthony Schwartz, a poor man's Anthony Schwartz on Auburn, fastest guy in college football. Braden Lindsey's a track star. He's not going to get a ton of targets, but like I said, they're going to give him the ball. They're lacking returning production. He's going to get the ball a few times, and he only needs it once to go to the house. I believe over the last 4 games in DraftKings, he got double digits 3 times, and he only had a few touches to do that. So maybe jet sweep to the house. This guy's super, super, super dangerous. As far as wide receiver, DraftKings, they kind of priced me out on their receivers. Again, I think they're going to be on a lot of 2 tight end sets. But Skowronek, I don't know how to say his name yet. I'll find out Saturday. But he has a decent price on FanDuel. Transfer from Northwestern. I think he's going to be their main guy to start out the year, would be my guess. As far as Duke, they have a new transfer quarterback, Chase Bryce from Clemson. There's a chance he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks Cutcliffe has had in the last couple of years. They had a dreadful offense last year, but their passing game couldn't get anything going. I think it'll be better this year. They played a lot of freshmen. He's really cheap on DraftKings. You could fit him in there in the super flex. Jalen Calhoun, I kind of like him. He was a true freshman wide receiver last year. He led the team in receiving with about 420 yards. And Noah Gray is one of the better tight ends in college football. He led the team in catches last year, and he's only 4,200. That's a good punt play. I could see him returning value. But the Irish have some guys to throw at him, so I don't know if Gray's going to go crazy, but he can return value and not be a terrible punt spot. And these guys are really cheap on FanDuel as well. I don't think I'd recommend a stack because, like I said, I would be on the under in this game. All right, next game we have an interesting one. We have Florida State versus Georgia Tech. These teams haven't played since 2015, but they've had some great games in the past. Some really, really close games in the past. Usually they play each other close. Florida State's a better team. They're catching 12.5 points here. But Georgia Tech returns, I believe they're tied for the most returning production in all of college football this year. One of the most experienced rosters in all of college football. They return 96% of rushing yards, 89% of passing yards, 87% of receiving yards, 93% of their touchdowns, 84% of their tackles, and 86% of their sacks, and 94% of their takeaways. So they return everything. Problem is they weren't great last year. However, there are reasons to explain why they were not great last year, because they were transitioning from a triple option offense to whatever they're running now. It's like pro style, but they got some spread concepts. Difficult to know what's going on there. That's the toughest transition you can make in college football. Of course they struggled last year. Of course. And they struggled. They were miserable. But they'll be better. They'll be much better in year 2. Not to say they'll be fantastic, but they'll be much better. They're a team I have circled this year. As far as offensively, I'm a big believer in Jordan Mason at running back. They have a lot of talent on this team. They recruit pretty well. I think they'll be pretty good in no time. I don't think they'll be good yet this year, but as an underdog, I think they're going to cover some spreads this year. Jordan Mason, one of the most elusive running backs in all of college football, and he was doing that playing in a crappy offense. I believe he was number 2 in some PFF metrics as far as missed tackles, number 2 to only Travis Etienne. Wide receiver Amarian Brown might be a decent punt play. He's extremely talented. He caught 7 passes last year as a freshman in an offense that didn't pass, but that's the problem. They don't pass very much. As far as FSU, they're going up against a defense that is projected by S&P Plus to be a top 40 defense, but that's projecting a lot of improvement because they were bad last year. They were on the field for most of the game because their offense only averaged 4.73 plays per drive. So it's easy to get tricked by that. However, they did have the number 118 rush defense, 215 yards per game, and now they're facing a Mike Norvell offense. Georgia Tech does return 19 starters total, and they have 2 SEC transfers. So like I said, they return everything. They return 20 of their top 21 tacklers. So the defense, I don't think, will be bad. Not to say they're great. I don't think Florida State's offense will be great either, but Norvell is a good offensive coach. James Blackman is worth a look, but I don't really love him. He doesn't usually have very many big games. Only way I could see him, he's pretty cheap on DraftKings, and he's affordable to stack with Tamari and Terry, one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. I will have a lot of ownership of him. As far as the running game, Norvell likes to have 2 fantasy-relevant running backs. Corbin should get the majority of the carries. His price is, I would have a lot of ownership of him on DK. And then his backup, Webb, if they smash Georgia Tech, or even if they don't, he could return value. I wouldn't play him on FanDuel, but worth a look on DraftKings. As far as game prediction, I will go Florida State 30, Georgia Tech. Let's give them 20. I'll get them to cover, but barely. Don't feel great about it. All right. That covers it as far as the DraftKings slate. Some things I'll notice. A lot of really good wide receivers. You can have Terry, Kohler, Dahu Green, Taj Harris, Daz Newsome, De'Ami Brown. There's a lot of options at wide receiver. I don't love a lot of these running back plays. In quarterback play, it's going to be whether you want to pay up for Sam Howell. You could probably get away with playing Skylar Thompson. Like I said, I'm going to play him a lot. Or if you can fit both of those in. And you could do a game stack as well. Tommy DeVito, I will have some of him. Brock Purdy with Iowa State, I'm not going to own too much of him. He's one of the better quarterbacks in college football, but I just don't see the game playing out that way. By the way, in this game, there might be a thunderstorm coming in to Ames, Iowa. So check that before kickoff. As with any of these games, a lot of guys are catching COVID, and they're not even coming out with who's getting sick, and you may not know until kickoff. So if you're playing these lineups, make sure you're checking the news all the way up till kickoff. All right. As far as FanDuel, they have some additional games here. I want to go over some of the players I'm looking at. Sam Ehlinger is the most expensive quarterback there for Texas at 10-7. I'll play him a little bit. I like to pair him with Tariq Black or Jordan Whittington, who I'll talk about later. He also gets rushing value. Trevor Lawrence, obviously you know who Trevor Lawrence is. You're going to have to get some ownership of him. I'm going to prefer to go with Travis Etienne at 9,700. They're playing Wake Forest. Wake Forest runs a lot of plays. They're outmatched. They don't have a great defense. Clemson should smash them. I just kind of see it being more of an Etienne game, but honestly, they could both return value. So maybe set a few Etienne lineups, set a few Lawrence lineups. Lawrence does have affordable receivers to pair with him as well, as we'll talk about later. Same with Ehlinger. Mikael Cunningham, 9,400. I won't have that much of him. I do like him as a quarterback, but with that price point, I mean, you could spend $800 more and get Trevor Lawrence. So, but he's a dual threat guy. He plays at Louisville, and they're playing Western Kentucky, so he should put up some points. As far as that game, I like Louisville. That's a great game. But I kind of like Louisville. I like Western Kentucky as well, but Louisville's offense, man, is something else. Their running back, Javian Hawkins, at 9,000. I love that. I like that more than Breece Hall play. So on FanDuel, I'll be playing Hawkins over Breece Hall most likely. Keon Howard, he's a cheaper option. He is the new quarterback for Tulane. They're playing South Alabama. He's a dual threat guy. He's had about over 100 carries in his career, even though he hasn't played much. And Tulane has a great rushing attack, and South Alabama probably does not have the best rushing defense in the world. Cheap option I love here. You can fit such a stacked lineup on FanDuel. You could stack Howell or Ehlinger with the guys, with Javian Hawkins, with Etienne, if you have a smart play. And Terrell Pegram is a very smart play at quarterback. He is for Western Kentucky. Louisville had a terrible defense last year. And Terrell Pigrome is a dual threat guy. I would not go super crazy because he has a lot of turnover issues, and we haven't seen him in this offense. And quite frankly, it wasn't a great offense last year, but he does not need to do much to return value at 6,700, especially as a dual threat. His running back, Western Kentucky's running back, Gage Walker, 7,600. That's just a pretty cheap price. I won't have him very much, but again, he's playing a bad Louisville defense. They did play Louisville last year, and Gage Walker did not have a good game. So take that for what it's worth. And then Texas's backup running back, Roschon Johnson, at 7,700. They're playing UTEP. They should smash UTEP. Keontae Ingram is their starter. I think he gets disrespected. He's a good college running back, but I don't like playing him in fantasy. He's not really a bell cow. He catches some passes. I could see Roschon Johnson getting a couple touchdowns in this one. As far as wide receivers, there's some good ones, man. Tutu Atwell. He played against Western Kentucky last year, and he had over 140 yards and 3 touchdowns on like 5 catches. One of the best deep threats in all of college football. Extremely explosive at 9,600. You can get some really good wide receivers in your lineups on FanDuel, man. Some guys to play with: Trevor Lawrence. Justin Ross is out for the year. That leaves Amari Rodgers as their most experienced guy. I think he could catch a lot of passes this week. 8,500 is a good look. Or you could go with Joseph Nada at 8,300. He's kind of a more bigger outside guy. Rodgers is more of a slot guy. Those guys I would pick and choose, play one with Lawrence. Tariq Black, Texas wide receiver, transferred from Michigan. Some good reports out of camp. They said he beat out Brennan Eagles. I believe it because I'm not a Brennan Eagles believer. You could pair him with Sam Ehlinger for sure. It's just a matter of how much did they run up the score against UTEP, really. One of my favorite punt plays on Texas, Jake Smith. I was highest on him as their wide receiver coming into this year. Slot guy. He is injured. Jordan Whittington was a very highly recruited, like an all-purpose back, maybe a slot guy. He was kind of a tweener. And he was a running back last year, didn't get much work. He was injured, and now he's in the slot. He was supposed to be the backup. It looks the next up on the depth chart to me. Texas's offense, if you've watched them, the Duvernay role, where he either goes deep or he catches a screen pass, they almost use him as an extension of the running game. I could see them doing that with Whittington here at 5,600. It's a very risky play. He may do absolutely nothing. He may not even play. But I think he could, pairing him with Ehlinger, is a super cheap stack that could really pay dividends. But it's risky. Another guy, Michael Jones for Tulane at 5,300. They will have a lot of him. Again, if you're going to fit these stacked lineups, you have to get a little creative. Michael Jones transferred from Oklahoma to Tulane. Tulane is missing Darnell Mooney, their top wide receiver from a year ago. They need a guy to step up. And by all accounts, it seems like Michael Jones. I believe he made Conference USA All-American. Maybe it was, or All-Conference. Maybe it was just as an honorable mention. But he was somewhere in there mentioned by Phil Steele. There were some glowing reports. They haven't really come out with an official depth chart that I've seen because the unofficial one I was looking at, he was listed as a backup. So, again, he's really risky. But he could return value, and I think that might be a decently high-scoring game against South Alabama. All right, those are the DraftKings and FanDuel plays for this week. Thanks for giving it a listen.